When I am a nominee, we will unite our party, we will grow our party, and we will defeat Hillary Clinton or Bernie Sanders or whoever they nominate. I want to thank an all-powerful and mighty God for the chance that He has given us to be a part of this endeavor here in Iowa. It's been a phenomenal experience.
All right, folks, joining us now is John Sununu, former governor of the great state of New Hampshire, and of course he's also the author of The Quiet Man, the Indispensable Presidency of George H.W. Bush. Governor, how are you, sir?
I'm fine, Steve. How are you today?
I'm well. All right, so let's get right to it. Let me ask you before we get to Rubio, where does Donald Trump now stand in New Hampshire? He is way ahead in the polls, expected to win New Hampshire by a lot. Does last night change that?
Well, last night there were two winners. Cruz was a winner, Rubio was a winner, and Trump was a loser. Whether that affects the opening numbers, so to speak, for the next 7 days, I can't tell you, but I do know that although New Hampshire doesn't follow Iowa, it pays a little bit of attention to it. And I think having lost in Iowa the way he did, it opens Trump up to scrutiny, and people will look at his record a little closer, and maybe they'll notice that he really has a long history of losing, from Trump University to his 4 bankruptcies, to the Trump magazines that failed, to Trump vodka that went out of business, to Trump fragrances that went out of business, to the Trump mortgage company that collapsed, to a whole host of things that is a line of losing. And so he's been trying to convince people he's magic and he's always a winner, but he's not, and Iowa might remind people that that's not the case.
Wow. All right. But do you see any scenario seriously where he actually loses New Hampshire?
You know, I've been trying to be as honest as I can about my sense of what's going on up here, Steve. I don't know.
Okay.
This electorate is volatile. I think there's about 50% of our population that is either soft on their commitments or hasn't made up their minds. In other words, a candidate that comes up here the last week now and either closes his deals or makes converts has the capacity, I think, to making a lot of headway.
All right. Let me ask you now about Marco Rubio. Does he get the establishment support, quote unquote, now in New Hampshire going forward? And how does this affect, you know, Jeb Bush and Kasich and Christie?
Well, obviously, Kasich, Christie, Bush, plus Rubio are the 4 candidates that I think Republicans in general, and I don't like using the term establishment because I really think it's gotten a connotation that's false.
Right.
But I think those 4 guys have the capacity to be a president. You know, the last thing in the world is you want a guy like Trump with his finger on the magic button, so to speak. I've been telling folks that I suspect that if Trump gets to be commander-in-chief, the Defense Department will try and figure out how to keep the nuclear football away from him. But I think Rubio, Kasich, Christie, and Bush all have the capacity to be a good president. They got to figure out how they're going to handle the Rubio momentum coming in here. And Rubio has to figure out how to use it constructively to build up a little headway as he goes into South Carolina. This is going to be a bit, not only a campaign, but a little bit of a chess game as they move forward.
Okay, but the strong third-place finish within a point of Donald Trump certainly changes the dynamic. Would you agree with those 4 candidates?
It does. It does. And Rubio comes in here with a huge advantage. What he has to do is figure out how to utilize it in a smart way. I personally think that those 4 candidates have to understand that the most important thing they can do here is to stand up to both Cruz and Trump head-to-head in the process here. There's a big debate on Saturday, and they've got to demonstrate then that they want to be part of this top tier by taking on the top tier.
What do you make of the Democrat side, where today Hillary was declared the winner? She won 6 coin tosses in 6 districts in Iowa. The odds of that are about 1.5%.
But you got to remember, this is the lady that hit on 10 straight cattle future deals.
Are you insinuating there's some shenanigans going on?
You know, Matt Rhodes, a good friend of mine who runs America Rising, the PAC out there that's been taking a look at Hillary's history, made the point today that all of a sudden Bernie Sanders has turned the Democratic campaign for the nomination into a referendum on the honesty and credibility of Hillary Clinton. And I think you're going to see a much more aggressive effort by Bernie Sanders challenging her capacity to tell the truth.
Sounds good. Of course, she lost in those polling questions with honesty and integrity, as she usually, and feels it could relate to people like me. She finished way down with voters yesterday in that. Governor, always great to talk to you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.